Well, we'll go ahead and get this party started. Couple of things we're doing tonight. This is our third webinar, and it'll be recorded, but it won't be posted, so to speak. But if there's somebody that is one of us, so to speak, of extension or vets training people that wants to see the webinar, then they can contact Debbie. She can send that out. But the only one that we put on the public site that anybody can get to is the one that is, what is alert kind of thing. So I'm Betsy Green, Extension State Horse Specialist at U of A, been here about 5.5 years. And we have a whole group that will let introduce as we go. But this one is going to be, it may not be too long, but we're going to go over a couple of different things. The first one is letting you know that July 29th and 30th, 2021, we will be having the first responder workshop, first one in a long time for alert. Be down at the Meats Lab, as I know it, or the University of Arizona Food Product and Safety Lab, Campbell Ave at the farm, and Campbell and Roger in Tucson. And it will start Thursday at 1 p.m., end at 5, start Friday at 7 a.m. and end at 11. That way it gives driving time on both sides. Debbie, do you want to pop in and talk to us just a little bit about some of the things that we'll be doing?
Yeah, we're still getting everything planned. I'll have recommendations for hotels and how to get everything reserved out probably tomorrow or the beginning of next week, just so that everybody can get everything on their calendars. But we'll update everybody on anything new with alert. We'll go through the different veterinary procedures and the extension procedures, and we'll have a chance to get your kits updated, to actually go through them, take old stuff out, put new stuff in. And then we're going to have a section where you'll get to put on all your PPE and take it all off. And then we'll check it to see how you did, just so that you're not getting out on a call and having to do that for the first time. So that's what we're planning.
Yeah, and so make sure you bring your kit. If you have a kit, make sure you bring it with you so that we can update it, restock it, etc. And if you don't have a kit and you're just getting started with us, then you will get a kit, either extension or veterinary, whichever is appropriate to go with. So again, mark on your calendar, July 29th through 30th. And if you are extension coming from afar, well, I guess it all goes through us, right?
Yeah, I'll have information in the email I send out on how we'll take care of rooms. But we'll be able to take care of a room night on that Thursday night for any of the first responders and the steering committee that are coming. And yeah, we'll get that all planned out. And then we also will be able to do mileage. And then for those with state vehicles, we can't do mileage, but we can help you with your Voyager charges for those drives. So again, I'll get that out to you guys.
Okay, super. All right. So this time around, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing screen now. And I want to introduce Trent Tigerstrom. Trying to get my slides so that it's not, there we go. And also Ashley Hall will be talking to us about a recent, well, not that recent, I guess, but a fairly large situation with an alert call, just for those that haven't done it in a while and or those that haven't been there at all. Just this one had lots of twists and turns. So Trent, I'll turn it over to you, and Ashley, you can pipe in too.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this was a little different twist, a lot of different twists to it, but we got in it kind of towards, we weren't the first ones called in on it. It was the vet technicians. They spotted roughly around 15 animals that were dead out on one of the nations, and they were looking into that and seeing what was going on. So they wanted the alert team to go out there because it was more than 5. But because it was on the one of the tribal nations, they called to see if I could go out there and work with the tribes and get access to it, because we'd have to be able to take pictures and, actually go out into the areas there. So we needed to get approval for it. Same time that I was getting started on getting approval for it, where I emailed the range folks to see who was available, and then I was able to get a veterinarian, licensed veterinarian in the state to go with me as well. But in the process of that, I was also informed by Dr. Timothy out of University of Nevada, Reno right now, but he's like the world leading expert on anthrax. And he mentioned that we were talking, he happened to mention that that was a hot spot. So he really in that area, so you needed to be very careful. So that kind of just ramped things up a little bit. So then we contacted the tribe. We got approval all the way from the chairman down to go do what we need to do. I didn't have a kit or anything. I hadn't been on one of these before, so they asked if we could go. I called and talked with the diagnostics lab, and they were great to work with. And they said, come down, we can kind of get you lined up on some stuff that you might need, slides and specimen jars and bags and that kind of stuff. So, and then Ashley Hall, we said, yeah, I'll come down. That sounds like a really fun time through COVID. And this is about August, I believe. And so we went out there and we met with the Natural Resource Department, and we had a conversation with them. They had a report of the first incident that they saw. But in between when the first one happened, by the time we got out there, there was already a second site. And so we went to the most recent one. And that's important because the other one was already kind of been disturbed, and they would already had buried some of the animals. And the count there, and there was about 13 on that other one. So we wanted to go with the most immediate because that's where we're going to see signs, we thought, of everything. So we were looking around. We were escorted out to the site, looked at it, and let me share my screen for a little bit. Just for a couple of pictures of it. So if you can see that, so this is what we found when we went out to the site. Oops, sorry. Everybody see that?
Yeah, we can. Go ahead. You can make it your screen width if you want.
Huh?
Yeah, you can make it your screen width if you want to make it a little bigger in case someone's on their phones.
Well, I don't want to dwell too much, but you can see what was going on, what these things look like. This is a calf, and we had some descriptors underneath. There was a lot of them, and this is what they look like bleeding out of here. So it was a little bit suspect, because we were already a little bit apprehensive about the anthrax thing. So, and there's, in this count that we had here, there was about 20 plus. There were some in the bushes we didn't see, but there was calves, there was other animals. So we went through that point. We decided that the veterinarian would handle the animals and try to get as many samples, but we didn't cut them open because of the anthrax. So we didn't get any of the necropsy kind of that you would normally take, like, the liver and samples of that kind of stuff. We didn't do that just as precautionary because of the anthrax. So we didn't want to open that up. So we tried to be as careful as possible as we're going around through some of these. And then Ashley and I went around, looked at the vegetation, and I'll scroll down here quick to these others. We looked around at the other cows that were around there. There were some that were just poor condition, but there was also, some other healthy ones running around. We looked at the water troughs. We looked around the water troughs to see if we could see anything. We looked at the manure. We took fecal samples of that. We looked at some other. This is another site we went to up the road. We looked at the different water tanks there. We looked at the main storage tank, and there was a badger up there in the water. So we took that in consideration too. And then we looked at the salt block, what was his supplementation was going on there. Sorry about that. And then they looked at the feed ground where they were feeding some hay. So that's kind of what we ran into. we got to going through a lot of the other things on there. Had a lot of different considerations. We took some, noticed that on the calves that were down there that they actually had been eaten on, where the cows and the bulls is indiscriminate of age, by age and sex. It didn't really matter. There was dead large animals everywhere. And but the larger animals, nothing was eating on those. So we thought that was a little bit peculiar. So we made a note of that, that there's nothing eaten on that. And that was something that got us concerned a little bit too. And we were looking for some animal that may have symptoms. Ashley, if I miss anything, let me know. But Ashley looked around, and we also had from the NRCS, they had some assessments of the plant species and everything that was around there. So Ashley went around and looked at that. There were some like local weeds, I believe, in around that area, but not right in the immediate area where we saw that. There was a couple other plants, but the way that these animals were distributed fairly close to the water source and around and up in the wash and under the trees. I mean, it was 115 degrees as well. So it was rather hot out there. So the animals were degrading fast. We were doing the best we could, but we took water samples, we took soil samples, we took hay samples, we took manure samples like I talked about, tried to get as much as we could with what we had on there. And a couple animals were sent off. One of them, we kind of talked about it, and we didn't think that one should have been sent off, but the tribal community was interested enough that they said no, they wanted that one sent. So we sent that one into to get a necropsy necropsy done on it to the diagnostics lab. We tried to find out what was going on. All the labs came back. There wasn't anything really obvious looking around. So we started talking to some of the other folks and around the area a little bit more. And a little more south of there, and I think southeast of that, there's been some incidents reported of some algae blooms. And the fact that the first site that they talked about, and then we are at the second one and the third one, they were all in the same pipeline. So it sounded a little suspicious, like these were maybe an algae bloom that was moving up the water and down. And then once those, those kind of get disrupted, they kind of dissolve quickly, but they can kill pretty quick. So some of that made a lot of sense with us. And I talked with the diagnostics lab about it, and that's about the best we could come up with, I believe. And I talked to Dr. Munskip, state vet, about it. And I believe that's where we came down that that's what our best guess was that's what happened, because we didn't have enough. Given all the samples we took, everything we could take up, the pictures, what we sent into the labs, there just wasn't enough there to really. But if you looked at where the animals ended up relative to where the water was at, and the water was full, fences were open, so there was nothing blocking them. There was no electricity going in there, so to be shocking the water or anything like that. We looked around at all that. We didn't see any other obstructions to get access to the water, and the water looked fairly clean, as you saw in that first one. So besides the animal in the big storage tank, but so that's what we were down to. But and because of the anthrax kind of threat on it, really kind of threw us off a little bit. Otherwise, I think we would have got some samples and everything in there, but we didn't want to risk it to everybody, just in case. So we had to err on the side of caution there. And I'm not sure even then if we would have got everything, because it was so hot and those animals were degrading so fast. But between the 3 sites and driving around in there, we know that there was probably, we estimated probably around 80 animals that had died in that particular area. But it was just kind of an odd, different things that are going on, and they just kind of had to roll with it and figure out the best we could do with what we had to work with. But we were, I thought, being very thorough in the site area, looking around as much as we could, and then ruling out as much as we could, and documenting as much as we could. Ashley, did I leave anything out?
No, I think you covered everything. I was like looking through some of the notes that I had taken since it has been a while since we've been out there.
Yeah.
No, I think you covered it. The only thing I would mention is, so when Trent told me about the call and asked if I could go out with him to look at toxic plants and help, I did go to my office to get my alert kit, and it had been like some time since I used it. And so we were looking for like some PPE things, like the vet that was with us wanted some booties to put over our shoes, and I was completely out. So it was just a good reminder for me to kind of like keep an eye on what is in my alert kit, to make sure that if there is some situation where there's some crazy potential where PPE is needed. Luckily, the tribal people we were with, and then I think Trent also had some trash bags in their car.
Yeah.
So we were like duct taping or like trying to tie trash bags around our boots. And so yeah, it was just like a good reminder as far as being prepared and making sure that your alert kit has everything that you might need, since you never really know like what you might encounter. So that's the only thing that I would really add, Trent.
Yeah, I mean, it just also, I mean, this was a little more complicated because it was on the tribal lands, and the other things we had to do too, because we didn't know what was going on and how contagious what it was. Some animals, they wanted to ship some animals, and we had this, we talked with Dr. Muncy about that and decided that's probably not the thing to do. So so we talked with the tribe, and they said, yeah, we will not move animals for a while until we give us some time to get the diagnostics back and see if there's anything that might happen. And they were really good about it for a while there. Then they started to get a little antsy because it was quite a bit. It was about a week and a half before we started getting the labs back, and before we had said, okay, you guys can start shipping. But that had to be official approval from the tribe to go and let these guys go. So I took a few heated phone calls from producers about what we were doing out there, but then who was going to pay for the animals and that kind of stuff. But we handled it all right, and they were really happy with at least the due diligence we went through, and I provided some information, like I said, about algae blooms, the things to watch for. So in the coming times, and then actually came back later on this year and did another one, because we're still in drought and it's still hot, and we had to be aware of that potentially of ramping up again. So we wanted them to stay diligent about watching out for this kind of stuff and not waiting until you've got like 60 or 80 dead animals around there, but getting it a lot sooner than that. And I haven't heard any issues this year at all. So maybe we helped out there.
And at what point did you find out that it was negative for anthrax?
Oh, well, we sent some samples that we had into, and that went to the Ames, Iowa lab. The best we can. Now was that sample correct? No, probably not. It would have been one of the dead ones, because that was one of the animals still alive. It looked somewhat symptomatic, but you really wanted the necropsy of one or some of those animals that were already on the ground. But with that hint of anthrax, you just don't want to open the carcass up. And so we did it. So had to play it safe, made things more difficult, but I think that was the correct move. But we have more expertise on this call than me, so
yeah.
Could I have done some things better? I think so. But
comments, questions, Peter, you want to join in on your side of this? Uh-oh, there he is. Okay.
All right, Betsy, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
I'm having some audio visual troubles. Yeah, the only other thing that, like Trent said, he may not want to open them up in the field, but probably, and I think you guys tried to get one hauled into the lab. If we could have gotten an animal hauled into the lab is set up to do the necropsies on what would potentially be an anthrax with the
Yeah.
bio-free.
We tried to find one that was more symptomatic than the other ones that were looked a little more like heat stress or not.
There was one that had there was one at the first site we went to that looked pretty poor, but after we kind of watched her walk around, it seemed more evident that she had like an injured leg. And so that one wasn't also really appropriate to send in because it looked like on her back right or left, whichever, she was limping like pretty good. Because at first when we got there, she was laying down. And so we thought, oh, well, maybe this one is an animal that's kind of showing those symptoms. But once we kind of walked around and put a little pressure on her and she got up, it became pretty apparent that like she had a limp.
I think that was a calving injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Betsy, we'll open it up to like Jim and Steve and
Yeah, you want me to
Dr. Martin,
go
see
ahead?
if they have any ideas and thoughts on this.
Do you want me to go ahead and put everyone so they can chat since it's a small group?
That
Oh,
would probably be a good idea.
yeah, Jim mentioned there he had a past definite diagnosis of blue-green algae off a liver sample. See, we would have done that. We would have grabbed that off of those, probably 3 or 4 of them that we'd have there, just to be sure. I don't know how long those carcasses had been there, especially in 115. I don't know how long those samples would have been viable or not, but.
Okay, so I think I promoted everyone to panelist. And some will have to be rejoining the webinar. You'll just come back in. Okay, so yeah, that you mentioned that about the liver sample.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can open it up to people if you can unmute and discuss. Ask, tell, whatever you want there. Everyone's here.
If Jim can unmute on his phone, we'll let him kind of say his 2 cents worth because he's been around the longest.
Okay, Jim, you have a request to unmute your phone. Okay.
Actually,
Or
do you
not.
have everybody on mute?
I've made them all panelists, so it's up to him to unmute his phone. I can't unmute him. I can just ask to unmute.
Okay, maybe it's those of us on the west side that are having audio-visual problems today. So,
Okay. Other comments or questions?
Yes, this is Steve Dow. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
The other thing I would think about would be blackleg. We had an incident up here in northern Arizona, more than one actually over the years, acute death. And this was before alert actually. And picked me up here at the airport and we flew over. It was south of the Grand Canyon. And they were getting steers that were getting fed up and before they went to the feedlot, and they were all in great shape. And there's probably 45, 50 head that were dead. And when we flew over it, you could just, it made you sick to see it. And in that area, there had been a history of blackleg or malignant edema. And that's what it turned out to be. So I think that would have to be in your differential diagnosis besides, you saw the bloody discharges and everything, and certainly anthrax is there, but blackleg would want to be, or any of the clostridial disease would want to be in a differential diagnosis. And I certainly agree with not opening that carcass up out in the field. And that's what we have a diagnostic lab for. So Anyway, that is one thing I would include in my differential.
It looks like Jim got unmuted. So Jim, talk to us. Oh, you have no sound pickup. Okay, you got unmuted.
Yeah, as we were driving out there, we were discussing just kind of vaccine protocols in the particular areas, things that we might see. I think we did discuss blackleg, but just because I had that individual tell me that that was kind of a known hotspot, that kind of overrid everything, and I just we just kind of played it safe.
Okay, other questions or comments on that? We're gonna have to get Jim connected with technology a little better.
I will say that in wrapping it all up, we had to be involved with 2 meetings with council members and all the producers, a couple of cattle associations. So each of these meetings, it was in the evening, but they were attended by roughly around 80 to 90 people, all asking questions. Because they were, also concerned because if it's a water source thing, that impacts it, could potentially impact even some of the communities around there. And so that was a concern. So we really wanted to try to do our due diligence as much as we could. The water tested fine, so that alleviated a lot of concerns, but that doesn't mean it wasn't an algae bloom, could have just missed it, but that was a concern too. So we wrapped it up at the end and had a final report, and then diagnostics lab was with me on that last exit meeting, our final meeting with the tribe and all the producers.
So we also, Jim said his case was north of Williams on dirt tank, and also got a confirmation on the water sample through a lab in Tempe. And he said that in the chat because his video or voice is not working, so to speak. Technology. Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me now?
If you mute the first one, then we can hear you from the one you just unmuted. So mute your phone or whatever you unmuted for. Oh, I can. Okay. How about now?
I don't know if you can hear me now. This is a good project for the next meeting.
Did you connected technology wise?
Let's see, you muted yourself.
Okay, well, Ashley, Wright, go ahead and say what you just told. Just go ahead and unmute and tell him that.
Yeah, Jim, you've opened a Zoom black hole because whatever both devices you have on Zoom, you have the sound coming out of the speakers and they're picking each other up. So you just need to take one of them, and it doesn't matter which one, preferably the one that you're not using as the microphone, and turn the volume off so that you can't hear us on that one, only on the other one, and it'll stop doing that echo. We call it the Zoom black hole.
So you just muted the one that wasn't working. So also turn that volume down on that, and then unmute your other one, and let's try one more time.
Unmuted now on the iPad.
Look at that. And here we have no black holes. Go for it, Jim. You've got the floor.
I'm technologically challenged.
No. So, Jim, did you want to share? I mean, you said that one about Williams, but did you want to share any other things like interesting cases that had some CSI tweaks and weirdness to them? Or because you've probably been on the most.
That was a sudden death that, we didn't, well, I guess we looked at anthrax, but we weren't really concerned about it. So we did do a complete necropsy, and we ended up with, I think, about 25 dead out of about 150 that were in that little pasture, just been moved in.
How far did those animals get away from the water source before they?
Most of them were within a quarter mile. We had one that was a yearling, almost yearling down, and was still alive. We gave it some Caldextro just because we could, and it put us on top of the truck after we finished running it. And it died a couple hours later, a little ways away. But they were they just opened the gate the night before into this little trap, and they picked it up that morning when they came out. So we know there hadn't been anything in that pasture, that little portion of the pasture, until about 5 o'clock the night before when they opened the gate. And small dirt tank was the number one water source. And they were all within a almost visual distance of where the water was.
Okay.
How about your story, Dr. Lytle, about the buzzards and the botulism? How about that story?
No, we've the only botulism we've seen was up above Wickiup, and it was in horses. And our source of it was a dead wild burro that had pulled out and died in their horse pasture. The only water, the sandy Burro Creek, had all dried up within 2 weeks. The only water source for 10 miles was their drinker there at the house. And anything that drank out of it, we had, I think we lost 11 out of 17 head of horses in that horse pasture. And our thoughts were, Dr. Glock helped me on that years ago. And our thoughts were the buzzards were eating on the dead burro and coming in to get water out of the water trough. And that was the source of the botulism. And it ended up being, I'm trying to think of type B, which classically what they see up on the reservation and elsewhere in Arizona is type C. But and at that point, they hadn't transplanted any burros in from anywhere else out there. They had enough of their own.
Yeah. Okay, well, we lost Ashley right to thunderstorms in Vail, just so you know. I got that text. Anyone else want to share any different situations that you've been on? Oh, Ashley's coming back on, it looks like.
So I had a quick question for Trent. So was the anthrax because of what the Indian reservation was telling you?
No. The individual that I was talking with, I was kind of just, I worked with him and his wife on another tribal project, but he's not tribal, and he used to run Plum Island, and he's a veterinarian, and he's also a immunologist. And one of his specialties that he's been doing for years and years is running anthrax. So they're just collecting samples of anthrax all over the world, and also doing the DNA sampling on all the anthrax. So anytime an anthrax comes up, they either call him or the guy he trained. And so we were just talking about, kind of the area and, the fact that it's been dry. So the animals were digging down the dirt a little bit more to get some stuff, and he said, just be careful. Not that it was actually going to be it or anything. He just said that particular area down in the southern Arizona over there is just a known mapped out hot spot. And so he said, just be careful. But I didn't, he didn't have any pictures or anything. He was just more of a word of caution kind of thing.
Okay, I was just curious because I don't think we've diagnosed anthrax in Arizona for years.
Yeah,
So
no, it was just, yeah.
It's more of a Montana, South Dakota,
Texas.
North Dakota, Texas issue than it is here. So I was kind of curious as to why he thought that was a hot spot. And it could be. I mean, we wouldn't have necessarily tested on the reservation. So
yeah, no, he's mapped it out there. He specifically told me that he had several areas down there that he's gone around, and they have diagnosed it in the soils there. So.
Well, the one thing I remember from school, it seems that you get your blood sample from the ear on a slide, and a good pathologist can stain that and tell you whether you're in the right ball game or not for a preliminary diagnosis.
Okay.
Have I forgot more than I remember?
That's what the veterinary that's with us, she's trying to get some samples out of that was some of the drainage out of the eyes and the ears, and getting what kind of fluid she could, that we could then get some slides together and get it back to the labs.
yeah, usually as long as you collect the blood without exposing it to air, you're fine. So for anthrax, it won't sporulate without being exposed to air. So
yeah,
a lot of times if you draw a jugular thing and put it right into a red or a purple top, they should be able to do stuff at the lab with it. So, yeah. But you're right. There's a lot of other things that can go amok there. The water, good thing it tested normal, because could be reports of toxic chemicals in the water too. So,
yeah. Well, we got samples as many places as we could once we looked at where the animals were and condition of some of the troughs. The animal in the troughs, I would think there was a badger or something. That was a concern. So then we sent them also information afterwards about putting ramps in there so animals could get out, so you don't have that kind of thing anymore, as well as algae blooms and things to be aware of and things that you can do to prevent that kind of stuff.
And just clarifying, the animal was well past dead.
Yes, it was.
Just, it wasn't doing a backstroke or anything.
No. But I think most folks do have ramps and some kind of trough exit apparatus anymore. So.
Yeah, even if it's just a log or branch, big branch. So, okay, so any other comments or questions on that? Okay, so the last thing we had is, as I think you've been on another one before, I think, Jocelyn, right? Dr. Jocelyn Beard is our new extension livestock specialist, and she's actually going to show you some of the things. She's from New Mexico and been up in Nebraska finishing up her PhD. But she's going to show you some of the things that she's been working on that could be useful for some of our alert, just getting the message out. So I'll turn it over to you, Jocelyn.
Thanks, Betsy. So hello, as Betsy said, I am Jocelyn, I'm the new livestock specialist. And the last call that we had, there was some discussion or maybe it was 2 calls ago. Anyway, there was some discussion about the confidentiality, but still trying to keep people informed and kind of those ideas. And so what I kind of put together, and this is just a very kind of sort of quick draft, if you will. Let me see if I can share this. Is essentially an alert bolo for when something happens. Now I do realize that burrowweed is kind of common in this area, but if there's ever a case of, so for instance, the blue algae, so we could create something similar in nature of just like, hey, this happened, and then kind of send it out to emails and the alert group and whoever else needs to know without breaking that confidentiality. So I just picked a kind of a toxic plant just out of thin air, if you will, and put something like this together, and basically just put some of the essentials of what's going to be impacted, something that you might see from it. And then, of course, because this is a toxic plant, put some pictures and some description with it as well. And so I figured, it's kind of a quick, easy way to spread the word. And there is some, contact information here, which can change. As I said, this is just a draft, but, just kind of a starting point in terms of trying to help spread the word without breaking, again, any of that confidentiality. And so the idea that I had was creating a template with all of this. So basically, whoever comes up hot in whatever area, we can just, plug in that information right quick and then distribute that out. And so, yeah, that's kind of the quick version of what I've been working on. Is there any general question about it or anyone's thoughts on it? Is it a good idea? I don't know.
Comments, suggestions? You guys are a lively, lively group tonight, let me tell you.
I think this is an excellent idea. It's a question of who's going to read it and who's going to see it. I think as much as anything, pictures are great. You need identification with each one of the pictures, and maybe the cattle producers is the place you start, or we don't have any individual addresses to send this to. I don't think, that as far as all the different ranches go, but no, I think it's a good thing and it's a good idea.
Well, and one thing on that, if she got that out to the alert list, you would get it and you could pass it on to your clientele, some or all. That's, so that it's not, people still have their, they don't think they're getting sold stuff. They see it from their vet, then that's something they'll be, oh, okay. Now, do you guys think, okay, should this be more compressed? More, is that good length? Is it, what will your people read?
I'm not sure what people are. I don't even know what veterinarians read. I send them out things and they never read it. So
unless it's a reimbursement or something, right?
Yeah, something like that, maybe.
I think
I'd have to say here in Northwest Arizona, I have been dealing with burrowweed problems. And so at least to me as a veterinarian, I found that helpful. And I feel like I'd pass that pamphlet out to the ranchers here in Kingman. So thumbs up from Madeline.
could you also put this in, if it was, if a case or two had been there, and maybe you put this in some sale yards or something like that, just so people could read it as they're, I don't know. I'm just thinking of different places that you do, feed stores, that kind of stuff where.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it kind of stemmed from the idea of, I know we have the alert list, but all the extension agents, I know they have a list of folks too and whatnot. So I mean, it was kind of however we could get it to spread and follow that. I don't have a compiled list though, as you said, but those are all good suggestions
Right.
with the garden sale barn.
You've been here a month and a half. What's your deal?
I know I'm slacking.
Do you think that we would need to put something to make it a, hey, this was a problem? You know, as far as instead of just this is something that you should know about, but more so have a, I mean, you said it's BOLO, but if it were something more, I don't, this sounds funny, but dramatic so that you can say, hey, this has killed cattle in Arizona recently or something.
Yeah, maybe like where that location is. I know I just put Northwest Arizona, but like maybe it could be, you know, recent location or recent hit or something of that nature, like at the top in like big bold letters of some sort. Maybe, I don't
know. Anything else?
Jim had a good suggestion, maybe putting it out to the cattle growers and the Farm Bureau to put out. Quick question, because I can't see the whole thing on my computer.
know.
Do you have pictures of the early stages, like this, like it's just as it's starting to green up and grow? Because that's a lot of times what we're seeing is, right now anyway, is that we're starting to get, it's certain plants are greening up, they're toxic. It's the only green thing on the field that they're eating, but it's not, people won't necessarily notice that if they're trying to look for the big plant.
Absolutely. Yes, that's yeah, we definitely can put the different stages of growth and maturity in there as well. That's not a problem.
And I mean, this could also be like vestibular stomatitis or something else. Or algae. Or something. So it could be stuff, a way to get the word out about things that Alert is finding, but still keeping that confidentiality factor.
Good idea.
What else? Anything else that we need to share? I'll just share. This is just, it's not in the, it's in the reminder of the workshop in person, which will be at the Meat Lab, alias Food Product and Safety Lab at the campus farm, and July 29th through 30th. And I think, Debbie, you'll be sending out some registration information. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll be getting that out. It'll probably go out Monday. I just need to finalize some stuff up, and then everybody will be able to get that on their calendars and let us know they're coming.
Are you going to send out an itinerary?
As well? Once we have a schedule for both days, I will send it out, an agenda for each of the days. But we're still finalizing speakers and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a lot of thunder at my house right now.
Okay, and then Jim had mentioned the tight-knit community of ranchers. Confidentiality goes out the window. It's fine if it goes out the window via the ranchers. It's just not fine if it goes out the window via us. But yeah, and so Ashley, is that Ashley Wright? I think probably, yeah, there it is. Says, sign me up for lead paint. So, and I guess that's something that, yeah, it's certainly, it doesn't have to be, it's not like other people can't utilize this framework too. So, but this is just something cool. And then Jim also mentioned Tony Knight. Dr. Tony Knight is your typing went awry here, is resident and let's see what it says.
Resident of Tucson now.
Oh, okay. And has great pictures and data. Okay.
Jocelyn, if you haven't ever met him, would be a person you need to get in touch with.
Perfect. Thank you for the suggestion. I appreciate it.
Call me later or something. I'll get you his phone number, or he may well be at our meeting there the end of next month.
Okay.
He should be invited whether he speaks or not, just because he's supported both Arizona and New Mexico alert tremendously.
And I think we ought to make him a member of Alert, honorary, if nothing else.
You bet.
Okay, and then comment about keeping the location vague, region like Southeast Arizona versus McNeil. So, yeah. What else? So that's what we had for tonight. Is there anyone else that wants to comment, share? I'll stop sharing this. But 29 and 30th be the first training in a long time. So it should be good.
I would certainly recommend following up with Dr. Tony Knight. He's a real expert in plant pathology and everything that goes with it, as well as a great lecturer. And Jim would second that, I'm sure.
Indeed.
Betsy and anyway, Debbie, I'm going to be reaching out to John Wenzel over in New Mexico, because it sounds like some of them can start traveling back over, and some people from New Mexico State might be able to come over as well. They're still a little questionable, but I think they can pull it off to help their alert program come over. And if nothing else, we might be able to help them with some housing or whatever we need to do.
Okay, and Debbie, did they answer back? You had sent that email asking what they needed as far as for them to be able to come. Did they respond back to you, Debbie?
No, not yet, but they may just not know quite yet. Everything is so fluid and changing, but they've got my contact information and they can reach out at any time.
I talked with Dr. Wenzel this morning, and at that point, he didn't even know anything about when the meeting was.
That's because Tim didn't get it to him, apparently. So
anyhow,
but Tim
they have people that are very interested in coming.
Dr. Hanisch is changing
like
positions
I have over there. Go up.
Well, they've sure been good to us too. I mean, from the Arizona standpoint, been very helpful with us, and certainly with a border state, we all need to work together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We welcome collaboration. All right. Do we have any last words, famous words, or some wonderful words from our state vet to send us off to productive rest of our week?
I guess all I gotta say is I'll move to close the meeting.
All right, there you go. And it's raining, so that's a good thing.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. And we will hopefully see most, if not all of you, on July 29th and 30th at the Campbell Farm Meat Lab. And it starts at 1 on Thursday, ends at 11 on Friday, so that you have drive time on both sides of it.
Thanks, Betsy.
All right, you bet. We'll see you down the road.
Thank you very much.
Right. Thanks.